Consciousness is not head intellectual knowledge. Consciousness is psychic energy that is connected to the ego and the larger self.
Welcome, Kathleen Wiley. I am so delighted to have you here on the channel. Kathleen is a Jungian analyst in private practice. And Kathleen, you have been a wonderful teacher to me. I've learned a lot from you. And the reason I have asked you to come and speak to me today on the channel is because I live in my head. And I have a tendency to sort of forget everything below my chin. And, you know, my approach to dream work is that. And I need some balance. I need to balance my approach to dreaming. And you have a way to do that. You approach dream work a little bit differently. So I wanted you to talk about that with me and with the folks that watch this, and tell me about that. What is your approach to dream work?
Yeah, so it's hard to summarize it in 1, 2, 3, but what I am going to do is start by sharing 2 or 3 things that Carl Jung says about dreams. And one thing that he says around dreams is he says, it's not so important that we understand the images, but that we experience them. And the shadow side for me of Jungian psychoanalysis and Jungian approach as it's made it into the mainstream is it becomes very much a head endeavor. It becomes a very intellectual, thought-driven process of making meaning, which we automatically equate with having the right words and being able to nail something down. When in actuality, I don't think that's at all what Jung or how Jung himself worked with dreams. He very much was about the lived experience that the dream was a piece of. In fact, he said the dream is a part of the soul in life, that it is a part of the being of who we are, and it's a living piece of psyche. Yet so often dream work treats dream like an object, so suddenly the dream is an object I can manipulate like my mouse, And the shadow of that is that we lose connection to the psychic energy that's needed to move forward in our life in the current and the present moment. The psychic energy gets hijacked by getting fixated on a particular understanding or meaning or idea. This is what the dream means. And then, of course, Jung says we no longer have a symbol, but we have a sign. And a lot of people treat dreams as if they're signs. Well, a sign, again, is something that you can intellectually say, oh, this is what this means. This is a mouse. This is how I use it. But a symbol is something that has mystery, that has some unknowing, that constitutes a numinous felt sense in us that we don't fully understand what it means. We don't really grasp it in its entirety. We can say things about it and speak to what we are experiencing and feeling in our body, but we can't say, yeah, this is what it means, and the concrete, literal, static sense of the word. We can make meaning that's fluid. So I think that's the starting point for how I work with embodying the dream, is recognizing it's a piece of living soul, and that means it's not fixed and static and inert, but it's a process.
So I'm trying to relate to this myself, and the closest I'm coming to that is I have had dreams that have felt powerful, and I walk every morning. First thing, I go for walks, and I carry the dream with me on my walk,
Mhm.
not I'm not sitting down and saying, okay, these are my associations or anything. I'm just carrying the kind of the spirit of the dream along with me as I move through my walk. Am I getting close to what you're talking about?
Well, what you're describing is what we might call a tool or a technique for beginning to drop into or have a felt sense of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
That you're holding it in your mind, and as you're walking, you're being in relationship to it, not in a linear thought directed way, but in a, I call it a percolating way. you know it's like it's there, and it's kind of perking and you're kind of perking, and there's kind of this back and forth exchange of attention and kind of ahas or realizations, and sometimes even intentional active dialogue with it. But it's a moving into to have a felt sense of the dream.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you work with someone, if you can say, in your consulting room or in one of your groups? How does it go a little bit?
So there's definitely a difference between how I would invite an analyst in my consulting room to work with the dream and how I might
Uh-huh.
someone in a group. So let me speak first of all to the group. One exercise that I recently did when I was presenting, I invited the participants to call up a dream and to select, if it was a long dream, to select one scene where there was a short movement. So if it was a short dream, to work with the whole dream. Otherwise, pick a segment, pick like a scene if you're thinking of a play. And then I led them through some prompts to of focusing on their breath, pulling their attention inward vis-a-vis anything that's out there distracting you. Imagine little golden threads in your solar plexus, pulling them in, and breathing until you felt your own center, the own center of your being, which most of us find somewhere is located between the heart and the solar plexus. But it's that place where deep inside of us, it's like a still point where we're one
Mm.
with the self. And then I invited them to call into their imagination, their mind's eye, the snippet of the dream, and to breathe into the images. Not try to think about them or figure them out, but just to breathe into them and to imagine with each breath that they're in that scene, and to let themselves with each breath to feel what it's like to be in that setting, to actually be experiencing whatever the affects or emotions are, to be having the conversations, to feel what's the felt sense of being in the presence of whatever the environment is you are. And then once they had a clear felt sense of the first snippet, to move to the second movement of that scene. Do the same thing, but stay with it with the breath, circling the image through you, letting yourself drop down into the experience of the image until there was a clear felt sense, then go to the next
Mm.
scene.
Mm.
So that you were working with a snippet where the focus, the intention was to let yourself actively be present, to experience
Again, I'm a thinking type, so this is
it.
a completely foreign language to me, right? I
Uh-huh.
mean, and I don't feel I'm resisting this. I'm still feeling a little baffled. But the idea is that when you say the felt sense, may I have a word that can you give me a word that would be an example of that? Like, is there an emotion tied to this, or is it something else?
No, that's a great question. So, felt sense is the phrase that comes from Eugene Gendlin's work on focusing. Okay. So for any of you who are not familiar with focusing, focusing is a technique where you sit and you breathe into a body sensation. So let's just say the body sensation is heat in the stomach. Okay, so let's just say I wake up with a dream snippet and the dream, I'm having an upset stomach. Let's make this up in the moment here. And so in my felt sense of the dream, I'm going to go into and really be with the experience of the upset stomach. What's the felt sense? Is the felt sense hot? Is the felt sense contorted? Is the felt sense scrambled? Is the felt sense light? Is it heavy? So these qualitative words that describe the sensation, most people are not in touch with their sensation. And I'm not talking about sensation as a psychological function. So
Mhm.
this is where for embodiment, we have to get really clear that what Jung did with psychological functions is not what we're talking about. By sensation, I am meaning like, is there a tightness in your foot right now? You know,
Yes.
are you feeling your stiff neck? Is there a sensation of restlessness and you wanting to move on your sits bones? I'm talking about a physical sensation that also has an energetic correlate, right? Because there's an energetic correlate, because Jung says that the body and mind are different densities of the same energy. Everything's on a continuum. If there's a physical sensation, there's an emotional correlate, a mental correlate, and a spiritual energy behind it, or an archetype. It's where Jung said the instinct is is the infrared end of the light spectrum. The archetype is the ultraviolet, but it is the same light. It is the same light in a different expression. So I'm not talking about sensation in a psychological sense. I'm talking about it in a biological, instinctive, felt sense. And so Gidling goes on then and has a process for inviting people to be with their sensation and invite what his phrasing is, invite whatever word, phrase, or image that best describes the whole of it to drop out of it.
Hmm.
And what typically comes is some felt sense, something that has a quality. Maybe again, the felt sense is unknowing. Maybe it's confusion. Maybe it's elation. Maybe it's excitement. But it is a quality. Sensation always includes affect, and affect is emotion with physiological activation. So sensation includes affect. And this is where, again, psychological typology gets all into a different direction. So if you're having a sensation, there is some emotional quality to it. So that's what I mean by felt sense.
Yes. And so an image or a snippet from a dream is bringing this into consciousness in some way, and this is a different way of accessing that consciousness that the dream is bringing. Am I on the right
Yes,
track?
you're on the right track. And consciousness is energy. Consciousness is not head intellectual knowledge. Consciousness is psychic energy that is connected to the ego and the larger self. So to become more conscious doesn't mean we have more abstract intellectual ideas, although most of us do get those along the way. But to become more conscious actually means that there is an energetic expansion of the conscious communication between ego and larger self.
Yes, yes. And that's very exciting to me because now I'm having a felt sense of something much more expansive.
Yes,
It,
yes,
okay, okay. Oh,
yes.
so excited.
Yeah, and I can say after this recent workshop that I did, one of the participants spoke up and said, I worked with a dream. I had worked earlier with my dream group, and this time I got what the dream was telling me. He had not gotten it through head-oriented or head-driven responses. He got it through being present with and experiencing the images.
Oh, man, that's very exciting to me. And uh, being the head type of person, it's also, not scary exactly, but it's just unfamiliar. And I don't know what the word I'm trying to find is. Do I really plug into feet? You know,
I see you guarding that heart right there. But this is part of my passion about embodiment and why I started the online embodiment circle. Because the first spiral of the online embodiment circle is for 6 months working with 6 different, what I call essential embodiment practices. Because most people don't know how to be present with what's happening in their body mind. And most people don't realize that the body is psyche too. I mean, this is Jung. I'm not making this up. And there are other theorists also who say this. So it's not just Jung. I mean, the bioenergetic people, there are a lot of energy movement therapists who,
Mhm.
the body is psyche too. And so learning to be present with the body like it's psyche instead of, again, a static, inert object that's like a machine. And so the embodiment circle actually works with and gives people a community to, on their own, but also coming together for support to build what I call 6 psychic muscles that are necessary if you're going to embody fully: body awareness, rhythmic breathing, relaxation, mind awareness, because again, the mind is psyche too, and looking at how they're interconnected, concentration and use of a mantra, because our attention and our attitude makes a big difference, and then developing the will. How do we actually use our consciousness in service of wholeness instead of using our consciousness in ways that continues to fragment us?
I just had that aha moment of what does the self want? What does ego want?
Right.
And sometimes, most times, I would say, maybe I'll speak for myself, but most times they don't want the same things. Ego and the deeper, wiser, transcendent aspect wants something else.
Until one undertakes and commits to the path of consciousness. And
Mm.
then after a while, we realize we are creating a lot of unnecessary suffering by following the lead of the ego and the collective consciousness. And we then begin to take our rightful place, which is to look to the self and
Mhm.
be a conduit for the self to come into our life, both the life of our own body, mind, and the life around us that we're creating. Yeah, that's the gift of the work of consciousness.
And that work is, to me, so necessary in our current world. In our current world, to be doing that work as a service to mankind without sounding too grandiose. But I really
It
believe
is.
that.
Oh, absolutely. I also agree that with that. I mean, again, if we change, how do we change? We change the world one person at a time. We change ourselves, and there's a ripple effect. Because we all know we've all been affected by people negatively. So we know the human being's
Mhm.
atmosphere and energetic composition has a ripple effect on those around them. And
Yes.
we've all experienced that negatively, I'm sure. And hopefully, we've all experienced that on the positive side. So, with consciousness and choosing to align with the self, we can become an agent, I like to say, of life and light and healing, of wholeness, because our energy system then ripples out in a way that invites other people to become more whole instead of staying fragmented and caught in collective consciousness.
Ah, this is music to my ears. Say a word or two the about dreams as the vehicle, if you will, or if that's not the right, the way of the mode of communication between the self and the ego. How are say something more about dreams, please.
Yeah, so because I'm a Jungian analyst, naturally my perspective is built on the foundation of what Carl Jung had to say, with my own twist, of course. So the most fundamental principle of understanding dreams is to recognize that the dream is a snapshot of what's going on in the psyche at the moment of the dream. And that the dream is the unconscious response to what the conscious attitude is at the time. So that the dream does not exist apart from the lived outer world experience. The dream is actually showing us, okay, this is what's behind going on underneath and in the background of this time period of our life or this event that happened. And so that's the first thing we have to remember is that the dream is always a response to what is happening consciously in the moment. And it's the unconscious commentary on it, is how I like to say it.
I like that a lot. Yeah, yeah. Can you give folks an example, if you will, of how that reflection, or how the dream is presenting us a picture, or, of kind of what's going on within us in relationship to what is happening in our waking life, and how that has changed someone, or how that has changed someone's direction, or how that is, how that has worked, if you will. Do you have an example off the
Well,
top?
yeah, I mean, I can share a couple of examples, but I want to say we really don't know how it works because
Yeah.
ultimately the unconscious and the process of transformation is a mystery. But what we do know is that by building a conscious relationship to the unconscious, we can mitigate the negative effects of the unconscious. So, an example that came to my mind as you were talking. So, and I'll give this example because I was a good Southern woman. I grew up in a small rural Virginia community, and I'm a good Southern woman, and we make nice a lot. And so we do everything to avoid feeling angry at someone or disappointed. And so let's just say that I have this interaction with someone, and I'm totally disconnected. I'm not conscious. I'm not in my body. And I do everything I can because I've internalized the idea that anger and disappointment at another is bad or wrong or sinful even, and you don't dare say anything. So I have this interaction and it leaves me unsettled and I'm not satisfied and I don't feel good about it, but I'm totally disconnected from my own anger and disappointment. So then I go to bed and I have a dream where I'm throwing firebombs. Let's just say I'm throwing firebombs and I'm as angry as everything. And I just want to destroy whatever it is I'm throwing the firebombs at. And I wake up startled and shocked and terrified of myself. Okay. Well, what the unconscious has just done is it's offered me up for consciousness of, hey, look, this energy is here. There's energy here. It's in this emotion. And the paradox is that when those things stay in the unconscious, or when those energies will also explode in the outer world, and people behave in ways that they then regret.
Mm-hmm. And
And
didn't
that
intend.
and didn't intend, and that
Mm-hmm.
are very one-sided. So
Mm,
the dream offers me an opportunity to get into relationship with this energy, to start to challenge the distorted idea that to have those emotions and affects is wrong or bad, and to
mm-hmm.
begin to dialogue with it, to look at, okay, so what am I angry about? What was happening? What was my need there? Where did I not tend my own need in that relationship? What is it that I want to destroy? Because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for for most of us, I don't really want to destroy another person or a building as the absolute truth of who I am. I hear one
Mm-hmm.
of my analysts saying, except when you do. Meaning that energy is there, but that's not my value. That's not the choice I'm going to align with.
Mm-hmm.
But I might want to destroy my being too nice, my
Yes.
being too good, my always accommodating, my smiling when what I really am feeling is disgust. Those are things that need to be destroyed in order for me to live more authentically.
Beautiful example. My example, and it's one story I tell a lot, is 25 years ago, I had a dream in which I was captured. I was in World War II, and I was a member of the French underground during World War II,
Ah.
and I got captured by the Nazis.
Mm.
And I had worked with my dreams long enough to know, and it was a terrifying dream. It was horrifying. It was a nightmare. And I had worked with my dreams long enough to know at that point that there was an aspect of Nazi within me
Yes.
that had captured me.
Yes.
And I really, really, really needed to see that. How was that manifesting in my waking life? Because
Yes.
I think that's why that dream came. And it was a glorious revelation to me, because I realized I really needed to make some changes if I was going to maintain long-term relationship, because the opposite of all of that heavy Nazi masculine energy over there of getting stuff done in the world, getting stuff done, the price I was paying was the price of relatedness,
Right.
of relationship. Basically, I was bossing my husband around in such a way that if I kept that up, it was going to do permanent damage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had to come to some, I had really had to look at myself. Not easy, no fun at all to say, have I really, I've been acting like that. I've been coming across like that. And prior to that, Kathleen, I had truly had the blinders on,
Mm-hmm.
about myself,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody else saw,
Yeah.
but I didn't see it about myself.
Yeah.
I just thought I was getting a lot of stuff done in the most efficient manner possible. What
Yeah.
a gift. That's to this day, as horrifying as that dream was, it's probably the best dream I ever had.
Well, and I'm going to say it was the felt sense of the horror that was the motivation to do the work and tolerate seeing these ugly things about yourself, and to really be willing to wrestle with yourself and what that
Mhm,
was about and how that was a defense and what your own needs were beneath it. And
mhm,
so it was the felt sense that you had through the dream that was provided the psychic energy
mhm,
to do the
mhm.
building of relationship to it.
And I think that's what made the dream stick so hard, was that felt sense.
Yes.
I remembered it in detail,
Yes.
and so that felt sense of terror,
Mm-hmm.
it cemented it in my memory, so that I would wake up with it and stay conscious of it.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Brilliant stuff. So tell us a little bit more about your online circles, and what is that all about, and how would one access that? And your website is Inner Divine Spirit. Is that
That's correct. Yeah.
innerdivinespirit.com, right?
.com. Mm-hmm.
Inner Divine Spirit. And so tell us about the circles, or the circle, and how you work in the spirals, and tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So if you go to innerdivinespirit.com, you'll see an icon that says Sacred Circles. And if you click on that, you'll get the information. So I'll tell you a little backstory about that. 5 years ago, I started a book project integrating alchemy, Jungian psychology, and scriptures from sacred texts, particularly the Holy Bible, that illustrated the alchemical processes and were like living stories of these are the things you undergo in the process of embodying consciously. Well, I woke up one morning, and I don't remember if there was a specific dream or I just woke up with that felt sense of knowing that I needed to start an online embodiment circle to work with the principles I was writing about. So suddenly, middle, 1st of May, I wake up with this realization I need to start the circle, and the message, it needs to launch on the summer solstice, which was like 6 weeks away. And my mother had died on the summer solstice, which today is, by the way, we are recording this on the summer solstice. And she died on the summer solstice in 2018. So I launched the embodiment circle and was just totally awed with the number of people who signed up immediately. I mean, it was, within 6 weeks, I built a website, I created training material, I got the word out. So when that happens, I know I'm in the right flow of the self. And so, Spiral, what are the 6 essential embodiment practices? And it's a self-paced, self-study program. Each month, a new module opens with a training video, transcript, audio, and a play sheet that I call it a play sheet to work with the principle. And you do the practices on your own. And then twice a month, we meet live by Zoom. And some people never come, some people come all the time, but it's an opportunity to ask questions, to flesh out material, and to get community support. Well, it took on a life of its own. I mean, it continued to grow. So, spiral 2 and 3 are fundamental embodiment processes, and we go through 1 month each alchemical process and talk about what does it look like to live through that in your life. So, for instance, my dream example was a calcination process. Clearly, calcination, heat, something gets burned up. So that was happening in my dream. The second process is coagulation. Something new starts to form. So, the image of the phoenix rising from the ashes. There you've got calcination to congelation. Anyway, we go through 12 processes. And again, I talk about the psychological and spiritual rationale, how you might work with that dream, kind of a key for working with, I called it a dream. It is our waking dream life, how you work with that process when it's going on. And then I connected into a reflection for you to work with that incorporates a story or a wisdom principle from the Bible. And so it's, Manly Hall says that the Bible is a book of alchemical symbolism. So I'm working with the Bible from that perspective in the context of the circle. Anyway, spiral 4 is all-inclusive embodiment principles, where we look at the 7 hermetic principles and what does that mean in terms of embodiment. Spiral 5 are core embodiment centers, where we start to look at the energy centers in the body vis-a-vis the tree of life. Spiral 6 and 7 are key embodiment capacities, which are capacities that are built as we go through the processes consciously. Spiral 8 is a deepening and an expanding of the embodiment practices. And Spiral 9, which is the next spiral that we're moving into, is going to be multiplying the divine essence, how it is our energies ripple out. So every 6 months, every solstice, the circle opens for new members to join, for people to renew. So you commit for 6 months at a time. And that's important to me. So some people will work through the first spiral, step away, come back. There are people who've been with me from the beginning. So it's really designed to follow your own lead. I tell people, there's so many programs out there that say, okay, this is how you do that. This is the right formula. And my goal with the embodiment circle is to support and empower you with the wisdom principles that have come down through the ages, and with practices to build muscles where you start to hear your inner guidance, because it is ultimately our own inner guidance that heals us. I mean, Jung says only that which is really oneself can heal you. It is only that which is really you that can heal. So there's so much out in the collective that says this is the way to do it, this is it. And all those programs have value. They have a rightful place, and they're all built around someone's experience. And there's a way I'm doing that too, except my aspiration is that what I offer is you're not going to do it the way I do it. Calcination for you will look differently than it looks for me. Fermentation will look differently. There is an underlying skeleton that's the same, just like our physical skeletons are very similar, and there's a template, but they're each also very different, and they're fleshed out very differently. And so that's part of what I'm offering in the circle, is to say, okay, here are the templates, here's the skeleton, but now you're the one who has to see how it's fleshed out in your psyche. And then these are the principles that can help you intervene effectively. Just like if we understand the skeleton of the body, we can intervene much more effectively than if we don't, even though we're each slightly different.
Oh, that is brilliant stuff. I'm inspired. I'm very inspired.
Good.
Alchemy is the alchemical processes are a particular fascination for me, but the, you know, to actually dive into them the way you are presenting them, as opposed to just sort of, you know, learning about them. Wow, that's very energizing right now, right here for me. So that's okay. So the sign-ups are the two solstices, the winter and the summer solstice. Okay, fantastic. That's
Yeah,
very
so if you're watching this around the time of the solstice, chances,
mhm,
and you can go ahead and join now for this
mhm.
cycle. And if you're watching this 3 months out from a solstice, if you go to my website, you can sign up to get an alert notice to
Oh,
the
right, for
next
the next one.
solstice.
For
So
the
yeah, I have such a passion for it. I mean, I'm just amazed at um I'm just amazed at people's experience. And, you know, the last chapter of the book has been, of course, limping along because I mean, I've been creating new materials every month for the circle,
Mhm.
but I have one more chapter to rewrite and then the closing chapter to write. And so the closing chapter of the book is going to be, whose working title, by the way, is The Alchemy of Embodiment, Unlocking the Secret Door to Divine Essence. That's the working title. And the last chapter is going to be about my process of my undergoing of these processes and the process of writing the book. Because, you know, they say you teach best that which you need to learn. I mean, and Edward Edinger says you talk about an archetype and you constellate it. So mhm, we need to remember that. That's a word of warning for how we label ourselves and other people and what we say. Yeah. Yeah, talking about archetype constellates it.
Oh, wow. Okay. I have to watch my thinking and my speaking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Kathleen, any last words to us? Anything else you want us to know about your work or this work or
Yeah, you know, I want to say that tracking your sleep dreams and relating to them as an offering of psychic energy from the self is truly life-changing. And as those of you who are probably watching and who have an interest in dreams, you know there are different dreams. There are some different dreams that are very much about a specific moment in time in your life. And then there are other dreams that are much more life. They're the big, people call them the big dreams. And so I'm wearing a pendant today that I had designed after a big dream about what to do with this heart-shaped diamond my ex-husband had given me. And I was debating about it and I had a dream. And so I got up and sketched what I saw and found a jeweler. And so there are those dreams that gives me chilly bumps even talking about it because it's a symbol for me that, yeah, I can tell you, oh, well, this represents this and this represents that. But the meaning of the symbol, I can't really tell you. I just know it's something, it's a symbol of connection to the divine essence in me and the divine that's in all of us. I know that. But can I prove it? Yeah, I mean, we could take apart the different pieces of it, but then it would lose its power. And I think that experiencing is what matters. And if we relate to our waking life, also according to how we relate to our sleep dreams, and we apply the principles of dream meaning making, dream interpretation, if we want to use that word, to the waking events in our life, we also realize that the unconscious is communicating to us all the time.
I have to tell you a quick story
Yeah.
related to what you just said. So in the last 6, 8 weeks, I've had a couple of dreams in which Christmas had been referenced.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. And that, of course, caught my attention because the time of year you and I are speaking right now is anything but Christmas. It's the summer solstice. So it's the opposite of Christmas. So I've had a couple of these dreams about Christmas that had a narrative to them. And then subsequent to that, I had a couple of waking images you
Mm-hmm.
know, an image of the European version of Father Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
not our Santa Claus, but that European, and an image of a Christmas ornament. And somehow I was making the Christmas ornament. So I'm paying attention to these. I'm writing all of this down in my dream journal, and I, I'm pondering this. Don't know exactly what it means. And then I guess it was last week on a Monday morning, I was walking my little dog first thing in the morning, as I usually do, walk in my neighborhood, walk past a neighbor's tree, and I heard some rustling in the top of the tree, which I took to be squirrels chasing one another. And then something fell at my feet. And I looked down, and it was a mound of mistletoe.
Wow.
Mistletoe fell at my feet
Wow.
right that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all I could do. It was a big thing of mistletoe, and I took a sprig of it home with me, just to hold.
Mm-hmm.
And I stuck it in a jar of water, and it sat on my breakfast room table for several days, but just to keep it near me, because something's trying to give me something, and it has to do with that. And I'm tempted to want to go and pin it down,
Right.
but I'm not. I haven't been. I don't know. That Christmas is laden for me. So anyway, I just wanted to, that waking experience that seeps into the night dream experience that then comes back in the waking experience. It's all kind of one thread that's moving through
Yes.
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's all interconnected. It's all intertwining. And how beautiful to live with the symbol, the offering,
Yeah.
and to let the energy work you. I hate the word work, even though I've
Mhm.
used it several times today, and that's but it's to let dance with the energy. That's really the better word. Is to live with the symbol and
Mhm.
dance with it and let it dance with you and
Mhm.
and see what movement wants to come. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that energy greater than myself.
Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
it's,
And that energy wants to dance with us. I mean,
well,
I really, yeah, the self wants to dance with us. You
well,
know,
it's throwing mistletoe at me.
listen, how often does that happen, right? Yeah. I mean, when these things happen, yeah. I think about when right before my ex and I got not my ex-husband and I, but my current husband and I got married. Before my ex and I got married, I was having fantasies that I won't share on air, but I thought, and fortunately, when I verbalized them out loud to a dear friend, he was able to help me see the symbolism inherent in the image was that I really needed to separate and leave immediately. So there are these things that come up that when we live with the symbols, it
Mm,
informs us.
yeah.
And this is, non-compassionate presence to what it is we're experiencing and what's coming up in our body and in our
Mhm.
muscular patterns of tension and our breathing and the thoughts and images in our mind and what grabs our focus and how we channel our energy are so, so important and invaluable. Yeah.
Oh, Kathleen, thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with me today and giving us this perspective and giving us this path.
Mhm.
And I invite everybody who's listening to this to access innerdivinespirit.com
Mhm.
and see what you are offering. I saw that you've got a couple of publications on your website already of
Yeah.
meditations with scripture around Christmas and Easter imagery and stories. And I recall, was the first one the Christmas one or the Easter one?
Yeah, so I have two books of symbolic
Hmm.
meditations working with the scriptures, and one is New Life Symbolic Meditations on the Birth of Christ Within.
Hmm.
And the second is New Life Symbolic Meditations on the promise of Easter and spring. So,
Hmm.
albeit they are tied to the seasons of Advent and Lent in the Christian church,
Hmm.
they are actually designed to be used any time of year that you're undergoing that archetypal birth of the divine child in you, in your
Hmm.
consciousness, or you are moving through that time of darkness that leads up to new life, of the new life of spring. Yeah,
That's a way I can honor my Christmas dreams is
absolutely.
is to is to get that book.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
I'm on
yeah.
my way. Okay. Kathleen, thank you again so much for
You're
being with me
welcome.
today. I really, really thank you with all of my heart, and very excited about your work, your practice, but really it's a ministry, I think.
Thank you.
Um, a ministry to the world.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.